Good day, you are watching Bet Safe. We are here at St George's Park, the home of English football, and we're talking England versus Lithuania, kick-off Sunday at 5 o'clock. Now, this man I don't need to introduce, because if you know football, you know Nick Collins, and Nick Collins, you know your football. How long have you been covering England, Nick?
Well, 1990 was the first game, March against Brazil. Gary Lineker scored, 1-0 win in the build-up to Italia 90. And at the last count, the 2-2 draw with Spain, I wasn't in Dortmund, but the 2-2 draw with Spain was number 272.
And we take all that knowledge and information and give it to you, the good clients of BetSafe. Now, let's talk about the England-Germany game the other night, Nick. What do we read into that? Because it was a friendly, but it was competitive enough for Gary Cahill to get a yellow card, wasn't it?
Yeah, listen, Gareth Southgate wouldn't have been happy that England lost in the end, but I think he'll take a fair measure of comfort from the fact that his decision to play three at the back was very much a success. So all three look comfortable. Now listen, you'd expect Gary Cahill to be, because he's been playing that system all season with Chelsea. But for Michael Keane to come in on his debut and perform on the right side of that three as well as he did, I mean, he even got down the other end and nearly scored at one stage, didn't he? So yeah. I think that was the biggest plus for me of the night, the fact that England looked comfortable. Not really since the days of Glenn Hoddle have we seen England play regularly three at the back, but Gareth Southgate was part of the Hoddle era as a player, and I think it's something he feels England should be able to play, and he's absolutely right from that point of view. We've seen England go away from 4-4-2 to 4-3-3, and now, yeah, listen, let's have a look at 3-4-3. If it's good enough for Chelsea, and look how well they're doing, you can't blame Gareth Southgate for wanting to have an experiment with that, and that's just the kind of game you should do it with. But on the flip side, I think he'll be a little frustrated that in that first half, when England pressed so high, they had so much of the ball, they dominated Germany in their backyard. We shouldn't forget that. That was a really good first 45 minutes, but they had a couple of great chances and they should have put them away, at least one of them. And it would have been a very different game in the second half if they'd have done that. You couldn't help thinking at one stage Germany will get a chance and they'll put it away. And I know we probably weren't expecting Lukas Podolski to get a goal as good as that in his testimonial game, but I mean, it's a fantastic effort. Joe Hart could do nothing about it, and Germany are masters at hanging on. They taught England actually how to hang on to a 1-0 lead. And remember at Wembley in November, England had been 2 up with a couple of minutes to go and they couldn't hang on. Well, Germany, even without several first teamers, did. So that's another lesson for Gareth Southgate. But overall, listen, I think it's a tick in the box. I think he got more out of it than he might have done, and now it's on to Lithuania.
Michael Keane was one thing that came out of that. I know you briefly mentioned it there. Could this guy, cement a place in the England side? I mean, he looked very comfortable. And Gareth mentioned it in his press conference straight afterwards, didn't he? The one thing he mentioned was Michael Keane.
Yeah, no, I was very impressed with him. And of course, Michael Keane played for Gareth Southgate in the under-21. So, I mean, he's a player that Gareth Southgate has faith in, and we did expect to see him at some stage, and it was good that he was brought in at the time he was. I mean, what was it, the first Burnley outfield player since 1974, and Martin Dobson? I mean, I remember him, but goodness me, a great achievement for him, and I think, yes, I want to see more of him. I mean, and the fact that he played the right side of that back three suggests that here's a player who could play in a slightly different role if need be. He's played in a back four. He's also played at fullback occasionally. So again, these are the kind of players you need in tournaments that can play one or two different positions. But he didn't really have too much time to take it all on board. By all accounts, they had one proper training session, didn't they? After they'd all got together to try and drum in the three at the back system. But I think it was good to see Michael Keane there. It's the start of quite a few caps, I think, for him, especially with Gareth Southgate in charge. And as long as Burnley continue to prosper, his chances of continued caps should be pretty high, I would have thought, yeah.
What about the defence for Lithuania? Because obviously if a back three works against a side like Germany, you would expect that they'd be more than comfortable with a team like Lithuania. Now, Gareth always played at Villa in a back three. He played for England in a back three. Will he stick with that, do you think? And if so, who?
Well, yeah, this is interesting. I mean, when they played Lithuania before, okay, different manager, different time, but 4-3-3 on both occasions. And I did wonder whether maybe they might go to something like that because it's Wembley. Do they really need a back three against a Lithuanian side who will be the underdogs, who won't get too many players in front of the ball at any stage of this game? So I wondered whether they might opt for two in central defence and revert to more orthodox fullbacks. But there's no reason why they shouldn't try it again, I suppose, although with Chris Smalling being ruled out through injury, the one thing I would say is that if you're going to have a back three this time, Michael Keane, fine, no problem at all. And obviously we've got John Stones coming in, but Gary Cahill suspended. Chris Smalling is now injured. They are running out of options now. I know Ben Gibson's been drafted in, but he's not played for the senior side before. You're then asking someone to play that position on debut. I'm not sure. It might be a
lack of leadership, isn't it?
It might be a simpler option to go with 4 at the back, just because I think England are still capable of playing that system. You can still have Kyle Walker on the right, Ryan Bertrand on the left, really pushing forward anyway, to help the midfield and create an attacking threat as well. Maybe they'll go down that route. I don't know. I mean, if you're going to have the 3, then I would understand why they do it, because it worked before. Let's try and bed it in a bit more. But on the other hand, this is a home game against smaller opposition who are less likely to be trying to attack in any great numbers, and therefore they might find it easier, especially, as I say, without Gary Cahill and without Chris Smalling. It might pay off more to go to a 4.
We spoke to Harry Redknapp on Tuesday. He was saying, look, Pete, this is a Faroe Islands, this is a Liechtenstein. It isn't that bad, is it? I mean, they've drawn some games. I think they drew with Scotland. Although the times that England have played them, it's been all about England goals, hasn't it?
Well, it has, yes. And I suppose if you remember one goal that England scored against Lithuania, it'll be their 4th one in that game at Wembley when Harry Kane came on and within a few seconds of marking his international debut scores a goal to round it all off. So yes, that would be the goal. But 4-0 at Wembley when they played, 3-0 over in Vilnius with a largely experimental side that night, as I recall, because Roy Hodgson decided to rest quite a few of his players. He left Gary Cahill and James Milner, Wayne Rooney, Joe Hart. They were all left at home as England went chasing the perfect 10. That was the night that they won their 10th qualifier out of 10, and the result was never in doubt once Ross Barkley had put England ahead with a really good shot, incidentally. And yeah, I don't see Lithuania being too much of a problem for England, but we shouldn't forget Malta were very well organised, and you'd say that Lithuania was stronger than Malta, and the final score was only 2-0. And I know England were in charge and they were 2-0 up, and there was no alarms, but they want to be a little bit circumspect sometimes against Lithuania, not assume this is going to be 5 or 6, because a lot of these countries develop really quickly, and because they're exposed to playing the better teams, they have the chance to improve. Now, I would expect England to win by 3 goals, but it's not Liechtenstein and Luxembourg and San Marino. They are a class above them. I don't think they're going to qualify or be in the shake-up for a playoff place, but I don't think they'll be bottom of the group either.
Joe Hart. Now, questions out there anyway about Joe Hart. I mean, that goal against Germany the other night, I mean, he was nowhere near, was he? I mean, it was a good shot from Podolski, but would you have expected your goalkeeper to have been closer? And B, would you want him to be your captain?
Well, I'm personally not in favour of goalkeepers being captains, and that's nothing against keepers as such. I just feel that your captain either needs to be your central defender or your central midfield player, so he's right in the mix, if you like, so that he can provide some leadership and drive. And I know in the perfect world you want 11 captains out there and everybody capable of taking responsibility, but I would rather see a defender or a midfielder. And listen, if every now and again Joe Hart is made the captain because he's got the most caps, for example, then fine, I suppose, on the odd occasions, but I wouldn't want it as a given that because Joe Hart has the most caps he's always the captain. I don't think that helps anyone, but I mean, Gareth Southgate has been quite happy to change things around when it comes to who wears the armband. I mean, whoever it is, it's going to be the 4th in 6 games. So it's no longer the cult of the captain and David Beckham always being a guaranteed starter because he wore the armband. It's a very different landscape these days, and I think I totally understand why Gareth Southgate would want to do that. I think there are other captains. Listen, Adam Lallana's led Liverpool and Southampton, so why doesn't he get a chance? You could argue that. He's one of the most informed players England have at the moment. There are people that he might decide, you know what, let's see how they go in that role, rather than always having the same captain. I don't know that he wants to sort of hand it round to a different player every game, but it's a good talking point because had Smalling not been injured, I think he would probably have been favourite to have been captain. He has led England before, but this is an opportunity for someone different to do it. I think it'll be Joe Hart at the end of the day, for the fact that there's so many that would perhaps have been ahead of him in the pecking order that aren't there, and it's almost like a snub to him if he wasn't made captain, because he is the senior player on this occasion.
I think Gareth Southgate will be the last person to want to cheapen the captain's arm belt. He's had it. He knows what it means. In the past, have England managers been guilty of that? Whoever does wear the armband, should they really feel the pride?
Oh, listen, I think the only issue you have with, if there's a captain that's guaranteed his place, as long as he's playing well, then it's no argument. But ever since the 50s and 60s with Billy Wright and Bobby Moore, there has been a special aura about the England captaincy. And if they are one of the first picks genuinely, that's absolutely fine. But we're in a scenario at the moment where, obviously, when Gareth Southgate was first appointed as caretaker manager, he was asked, will Wayne Rooney still be captain? He said yes. Well, the thing is, Wayne's not always been fit, and Gareth Southgate has felt that there's times he shouldn't start, that he should be a squad player, come on maybe in the second half. So that has raised the whole issue of the status of the captain. And yes, he's not going to keep wanting to hand it around like confetti or whatever. I remember one game under Sven where the armband went round in the second half about 5 times, ended up with Emil Heskey wearing it. I mean, it did get a bit ridiculous. Now, I don't want it to go back to that, but on the other hand, I also don't subscribe to the theory that if you name a squad and so's your captain, then he definitely has to start, only if he's absolutely guaranteed his place. So I think it's right that Gareth has had a look at this and thought, I want to encourage leaders, and if I can develop 2 or 3 of them, then that's no bad thing. And he's got Jordan Henderson, who's done it before, of course, Gary Cahill, who's suspended, Wayne Rooney is the official one. There are candidates to do it, for the qualifiers that are coming up. For this one, I think it will be Joe Hart, unless he decides to really experiment.
What about the front three? Because it started to work, didn't it, against Germany? The first 15 minutes, and we saw Vardy have a chance. We saw Dele Alli at one point have a fantastic chance. But what do you think the front three will be? Because there's a change possibly, isn't there?
Well, there is, yeah. I mean, Raheem Sterling's been in great form for Manchester City, obviously rested for the game in Dortmund. You'd be surprised if he doesn't feature, you really would. He's been one of England's key players in this qualifying campaign so far. You'd argue the best 3 for England have been Adam Lallana, Dele Alli and Raheem Sterling. I think they've been England's 3 best players. Now, do you play all 3 of them up front as a 3 and perhaps stick Raheem Sterling in the middle up front? We've seen Roy Hodgson do that, for instance, before. I don't know. I kind of think I prefer Sterling cutting in from slightly wider positions. Jamie Vardy with Lallana one side, Sterling the other, and Dele Alli maybe tucked in as, say, maybe not 3-4-3 as such, but say 3-3-1-3, so that Dele Alli's still playing forward. I mean, I just think it's a bit of a waste of Ali's talents if we start using him as a holding mid or withdrawn in midfield. His best position is that number 10. It's playing off the shoulder of the main striker and suddenly being in spaces that nobody expects him to. He has got an eye for goal, and yes, he will miss chances, as we saw again on Wednesday night, and we saw famously in Berlin the year before. But the number of goals he's got for Tottenham shows you that he should not be a deep midfield player. He should always be up there as an attacking threat, because that's what he does best.
You bring me on to that. I mean, Dele Alli, he wants to be called Dele, doesn't he? So we'll call him Dele. How good is he? How much do you think Gareth Southgate needs to build things around him?
Well, I think that if he continues to improve the way he has done over the last 2 seasons, then he is England's go-to player, their X-factor, if you like, the player that's something special, the player that, if you look at it at the end of a tournament, you'd expect him to be in the team of the tournament. That's how good I think he can be, no question about it. A midfield player like him with his eye for goal, but also the tricks he has, the ability he has to change games. That's what I like about England's attacking threat at the moment, in that Lallana and Sterling are the same. Okay, they may not always be consistent to the absolute level you want, but you know what, they have got a trio there that are going to cause international teams all sorts of problems, because they are capable of the unexpected, and at that level deep on into tournaments. That's what you need to separate you from the opponents who will be hugely well organised and will probably have a better record at tournament knockout play than England. But maybe with this breed and this generation of England players, we just might have something a little bit special that could cause problems at the tail end of tournaments.
Will that impact then if Raheem Sterling comes in? Will it affect the middle line of four? Do you think? Obviously the wing backs will be the same, and you would expect Eric Dyer?
Yes, you would. I mean, I suppose it's whether if you say, oh, we'll have Dele Alli further forward and then three. Well, you'd almost be looking at a diamond then behind a front three. And against a side like Lithuania, I think you could do that if you've got Dele at the tip of it and Dyer at the base. And then obviously Bertrand and Walker playing as wing backs, but midfield diamond almost. So you are sort of pushing them forward quite a lot. But then again, if you've got three defenders behind that, then that's okay. Especially if Michael Keane continues. He looked very solid and happy to be on the right hand side of that. John Stones, you would imagine, is the sort of player that long term, if you're going to play a three, he'd be the one earmarked to play the central role. But you know, we'll have to see how it all goes. As I say, it comes back to the fact that with Chris Smalling and no Gary Cahill, he might have to compromise slightly and play a back four against Lithuania.
Just to show the viewers exactly where we are, St George's Park here, you can see behind, these are the actual rooms that the players stay in. Right on the end there with the big balcony is where Gareth Southgate's room is, and there's a little meeting room in there where he can get his backroom coaches and discuss plans. He'll have discussed a lot this week, Nick, won't he, about this game, because yes, Germany was a friendly, but this is important. I mean, talk about England's qualifying campaign. It's a long time now since they've lost a game in qualifying for any tournament.
Well, yes, it is. I mean, it goes back several years. So, I mean, it's a fantastic record. It goes all the way back to Ukraine and unpronounceable name, but in the southeast of Ukraine.
If you can't pronounce it, Nick,
listen, what I remember most about it was the fact that the locals overran the media box there, and we all had to sit on chairs on the touchline. That's how all the national newspapers and covered the game that night. But yeah, listen, it's a fabulous record, but it counts for nothing unless England do well at the major tournaments. And as I say, the perfect 10 out of 10, great achievement, and you shouldn't belittle it, but on the other hand, it wasn't the platform for success in France last summer that we thought it might be. At the moment, England have pushed themselves into a good position. They took a bit of criticism for failing to see off Slovenia, but you know what, a goalless draw away to Slovenia isn't half a bad result when you look at it in the context of the table. And don't forget, they won in Slovakia as well, which is a tricky place. They couldn't do that on neutral territory at the Euros, and they did it instead in Slovakia, so that's another plus. And right, the perfectionists amongst us will probably feel they should have scored more goals than they have so far, but you know what, 6 goals without any conceded and 10 points out of 12, clear at the top of the group, with a home game against Lithuania to come. I mean, it's set fair for England. They want to be on the front foot and clear because they've got one tricky game at the end of the season away to Scotland, and I know Scotland aren't faring particularly well, but England know that that's probably their hardest game that they've got left, and if they can finish the season with a flourish, they can almost get qualified this year and have the pressure taken off them when the next season gets underway. But as I say, great that England do well in qualifiers. We've discovered a way of doing it. They can dig out these 1-0 wins away from home in tricky places, and that's a great quality, and we shouldn't undermine or underestimate that in any way. But it's very much those of us that watch England on a regular basis, it is a kind of, we've seen it all before. Let's hope this time this can be a basis of a successful tournament as well as a successful qualifying campaign.
Well, twice they've met, 7 goals, all of them to England. Let's look at the odds. England to win, 1 to 10. The draw, 15 to 2. Lithuania to win at Wembley, Nick, 27 to 1. Now, what do they say about the bookies knowing things?
Well, yeah, goodness me. In a 2-horse race, that's fantastic odds, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think it does reflect the fact that Lithuania haven't managed to score against England. And listen, if they did score, it would be a bit of a setback, but you'd still expect that England, even without a Harry Kane and obviously no Daniel Sturridge, or Danny Welbeck would have been another, and of course no Wayne Rooney, there's plenty of attacking firepower not at their disposal, but with Jamie Vardy and of course Marcus Rashford And we haven't talked about him, but Jermaine Defoe has been recalled to this England squad. Maybe he might be earmarked for some kind of role against Lithuania. His experience, if England are finding it difficult to break them down, then maybe he's the sort of player that could come on, force a change of system, but nick you a goal when you most need it. That's what he's been doing for Sunderland all season. So I'd be amazed, absolutely amazed, if anybody picks up on that 27-1 shot. But you never know. I think 10-1 isn't going to make you much money, 10-1 on, but that's the bet. It's the only bet, really, isn't it?
I'd think so. I mean, you mentioned Jermaine Defoe there. There's a BetSafe boost that fans can look at. Jamie Vardy and Jermaine Defoe to score is 11-5. Another boost is England to win and both teams to score, 13-5. Lithuania to score first, 11-2. Again, closed.
Yeah, listen, I think I'd want bigger odds than that for Lithuania to score first. But England have conceded before at Wembley in games when perhaps they shouldn't have done. In the last qualifying campaign, Slovenia took the lead against England. The first goal they'd conceded in several qualifying matches, even though, of course, it was Jordan Henderson own goal, so arguably England did score all the goals that they had. But no, listen, Lithuania will continue to improve. They'll be difficult to break down, but England got 4 last time. I would expect them to do something similar this time. If it's a nervous 1-0, well, I know they'll say afterwards there's no easy games in international football. That would be a bit of a disappointment, because you feel England are building something at the moment, and it would be nice to see them score another 3 or even 4 on Sunday and really take charge of that group, put it to bed pretty much, and move on and then start thinking seriously about Russia.
So in your opinion, this Lithuania game, Lithuania is an England win, but just a case of how many?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we shouldn't get complacent about it, of course, and there's always somebody who might come along and upset the apple cart, but yeah, England, they showed in Dortmund on Wednesday night that they're pretty well organised, whichever system they choose to play. If they play 4, if they play 3 at the back, that's fine. If they go to a 4-2-3-1, that's also okay, or 4-3-3. I think what you'll see is if they can't break Lithuania down, you may get a change of tactics, a change of formation to try and just find a way through. But they've not had too much difficulty breaking Lithuania down in the past. I mean, each time they played them, they got the first goal within the first 15-20 minutes of a game, so it's not like the crowd are getting edgy and impatient because England haven't broken through. And I think most people appreciate the fact that any smaller side coming to Wembley is going to make it hard and try and hang on for as long as possible, and it's up to England to find a way through, but I genuinely believe they will.
Nick, fantastic to talk to you, as always. All the information you need. The governor is back, and he's back on BetSafe. You can check out all the latest odds on betsafe.com. And remember, you've got to be in it to win it.